James Twin for the untouchable True School Sports. Let's go, baby. Bow!
Be careful what you wish for because it can become a reality.
Yeah. The untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing game's been missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. All right, so I had to come on here and address this because throughout all of last week, all I heard from the boxing community, from the boxing fans, and even boxing media, even like respected boxing minds, former fighters, guys that have went ahead and walked the walk and talked the talk, they were talking just utter bullshit, like just nonsense, bitching and moaning about this whole Michael Eifert situation because Artur Beterbiev, fresh off of becoming undisputed, has been ordered by the IBF to defend his belt against Michael Eifert, and or he'll be stripped of the belt. If he doesn't want to be stripped of the belt, he either has to fight him or pay him step aside money. And boxing fans are really upset about this because it comes on the heels of they see it as a potential way of blocking a Dimitri Bivol rematch. So that's where the gripe is, and you know, the IBF, they're probably the most consistent when it comes to following their own rules. Obviously, they're not perfect. There's examples that you can point out of them not stripping guys maybe when they should have. But generally speaking, case by case, they are the most consistent in boxing. And boxing fans don't like the fact that these undisputed champions get stripped or have to fight these guys right away. And honestly, I think you guys are in the wrong. I think, you know, whether you like, when I hear people discredit the IBF and their mandatory challenge, what I really hear is a clear disrespect and disregard for the sport of boxing, because it doesn't matter what I think about Michael Eifert or what you think about Michael Eifert. Michael Eifert earned the right to become the mandatory challenger in, I believe it was February or March of last year in 2023. He had to sit here and wait patiently for Bivol and Beterbiev to drag their feet to make the fight, for Turki Al-Sheikh to pay them their money, for them to just postpone the fight. Like, he's had to play the waiting game. And a lot of people will say, well, like, BT, how does a guy like Michael Eifert become the mandatory challenger? Simple. Michael Eifert fought Jean Pascal in an IBF final eliminator. He was a 5-1 underdog in that fight, and he went to Canada and outboxed Jean Pascal to become the mandatory challenger. He's been the mandatory challenger since early last year. If you never heard this name or don't know this name, what it means is you don't really follow the light heavyweight division or boxing as close as you think you do, and you need to educate yourself. So, look, it's one thing if fans want to discredit the IBF because a lot of boxing fans don't know no better. But when I hear, like I'm sitting here, I'm watching Pro Box TV, I'm watching Paulie, I'm watching Sean Porter, I'm watching Chris Algieri. Like, these are guys that are supposed to really understand boxing on a different level because they walk that walk. They were champions themselves. And they're pretty much shitting on Michael Eifert, and they're saying, like, what has he done? And he beat a guy that was a 5-time world champion in Jean Pascal, went to his hometown and beat him as the underdog. So my thing is this: the problem isn't the IBF. The problem is boxing fans, media, and pundits alike. They're not keeping things consistent. They're not keeping things real, and they don't really care about these fighters like they like to act like they do. They don't, because look. The IBF, they ordered Jermell Charlo to fight Bakram Murtazaliev years ago. And Jermell Charlo, what did he do? He paid Bakram step-aside money while he was on his quest to become the undisputed champion. And then eventually he gets decided, you know what? I'm not going to fight him, and he vacated the belt. But the IBF, being so stringent with their mandates and the mandatories, forced his hand and kept the division moving. And the IBF does a great job of not allowing these divisions to become stagnant. Now, there's cases you can point to, like Earl Spence with Abdul Kakarov, but if you do your research, you'll find out that Abdul Kakarov have had visa issues and pulled out of the interim title fight and things like that. You know, that's a whole video in itself. But, like, for the most part, they don't allow these divisions to stagnate. And I think I think boxing fans and boxing itself, the industry and everyone alike on TV that has a voice of influence, needs to start respecting these mandatory challengers, because the whole concept of a mandatory challenger in the first place is for a couple of reasons. Number one, for the champion, all right, it keeps him active, but normally the mandatory challenger isn't as good as the champions. So, you know, it's a way for the champion, if he's good enough, to maintain longevity in the sport, because he's not in tough fight after tough fight after tough fight. And on top of that, for the mandatory challenger, it levels the playing field. It gives fighters from other countries. Let's say if you're a fighter from Africa, you're a fighter from Argentina. You don't have the most resources. You don't have the big promoter behind you. But guess what? It creates a pathway for those guys to strive for, so that they can one day get a title shot. It equals the playing field. That's the whole point of a mandatory challenger. And by you guys and the boxing world constantly devaluing mandatory challengers, you are devaluing boxing. So look, I personally think that Artur Beterbiev will beat the brakes off Michael Eifert. But you know what? A lot of people, myself included, thought that Tim Tszyu was going to beat up Bakram Murtazaliev. And guess what? Bakram Murtazaliev, when he got on that big stage, he showed that he was a lot better than people realized. So you know what? You got to give these mandatory challengers a fair shake. I hear a lot of talk in boxing about this guy doesn't get a fair shake, that guy doesn't get a fair shake. And it's normally boxing fans and media bitching and moaning about their biases not being met. But we got to respect these mandatory challenges. I just didn't like hearing people I'm hearing people like Sean Porter talk about Michael Eifert being the mandatory's corruption. I'm hearing all these guys complaining. And these are guys that I all respect, that I all know in real life, and that have zero problems having healthy discourse with all of them and properly telling them that in this case, they don't know what they're talking about. Because Michael Eifert did the right thing. He won the fights that he needed to win to get into the eliminator. He got into the eliminator against a 5-time multiple division world champion. Borderline, you could even argue, borderline Hall of Fame fighter in Jean Pascal. Went to his country as a 5-1 underdog and outboxed him. And then I'm getting these guys that are supposed to be ex-world champions fighters. They're telling me that no, that's not good enough. Well, then what is good enough? What, like, who else does he got to beat? He won the eliminator, and he's a mandatory challenger. Like, for example, in the WBA, Mirza Akhmadaliev beat Kevin Gonzalez to become mandatory challenger. I don't think that should have been an eliminator fight. It was. He's the mandatory challenger whether BT likes it or not. And I respect his position. If Inoue can't fight Sam Goodman, then he's got to fight Mirjan. Otherwise, Mirjan's people are going to sue him. So my thing is, the IBF is hands down to me it's the best belt it's the best belt in boxing. It's the most consistent sanctioning body in boxing, and it's the sanctioning body that gives the most fair opportunities to not just fighters you guys like, but all fighters. And that's what it's about. It's about all fighters, not just Beterbiev, not just Bivol. Why is Michael Eifert catching backlash? All Michael Eifert did was beat Jean Pascal in Canada and win the eliminator. Why aren't you guys getting mad at Beterbiev? Why aren't you guys getting mad at Bivol for taking 7 years to fight each other? That's really what you guys should be mad about, because these guys dragging their feet all these years, not fighting each other for whatever the case may be. That's why we have Michael Eifert, And then Michael Eifert probably wouldn't even be there if Joshua Buatsi would have fought in the eliminator. Joshua Buatsi rejected fighting in an IBF fight eliminator, which allowed Michael Eifert to fight Jean Pascal. If you guys remember, I did a video about it. Buatsi was supposed to fight Jean Pascal. Buatsi declined to fight Jean Pascal. So Eifert slotted in for Buatsi, and he beat Pascal to get that position. So get up on your boxing. Stop getting mad at the IBF. The IBF's just following the rules. They're honoring the mandatory challengers. And I really wish that the rest of boxing was like the IBF. I wish the WBC was run like the IBF. I wish the WBA was like the IBF. I wish the WBO was like the IBF, because if it was, you would have less stagnation in these divisions. You'd have, undisputed fights happening more often. You'd have unification fights happening more often, because it would be a fluid system. So it's just funny to me. Boxing fans and media will say, they'll point the finger at Mauricio Sulaiman and the WBC and Gilberto Mendoza and the WBA and Paco Valcarcel and the WBO, and they'll say, oh, well, there's corruption. They don't make these guys fight their mandatories when it's a big name who's mandatory. But when it's Michael Eifert from Germany or somebody else, now it's a problem, because they're not up in their boxing and they don't know that he beat a 5-time world champion in his hometown as a 5-1 underdog to get the damn position. So the problem ain't the IBF. The problem ain't Michael Eifert. The problem is you. It's you, complaining boxing media personality. It's you, complaining boxing fan. You just didn't watch the damn fights. And if you wanted to go learn about those fights, the videos are still up on True School Sports. Go look up my post-fight review video. It was a long time ago, early last year. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Just wanted to get my little thoughts out there on the IBF and this whole situation, because, You know, there's a whole lot going on. It's funny because if boxing was ran the way a lot of you guys, the boxing fans, wanted, we wouldn't have got Bakhram Murdalatsev doing that to Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu would have just been fighting the big names. He would be fighting Virgil. He'd be fighting Terrence Crawford. He'd be fighting all these guys. And we would have never got to see the destruction that and the beating that and the entertainment that Bakhram delivered to the boxing world. You know, so it's not just about the big names. You know, sometimes there's a lot of guys in these rankings that are mandatory challengers that are diamonds in the rough, and we don't find out what they truly are until they get that shot on the big stage. So it's a very important thing in boxing. It's a very important issue. I will continue to talk about on this channel whenever I hear mandatory challengers get devalued. I don't care if you think they're not that good. I don't care if you don't know who they are. Give them a chance. They may just be better than you think, as Bakhram showed us. Not now, obviously, most of the time, if the champions are any good, they should be getting the mandatory challengers out of there. But there are times where there are killers that become mandatory, and we saw it this past week. You know, Bakhram. And by the way, Bakhram wasn't. He was already the champion, so I want to be clear on that. He was the champion already, but he was the champion that beat Jack Colcave for a vacant belt, and you know he had been mandatory, right? He had been made to play the waiting game, and he actually got he made $2 million not fighting, just taking step-aside money from Jermell Charlo all those years, so Jermell could you know, pursue Undisputed. And then all the while he got to improve as a fighter, because you know, I've seen some tape on him. He got better, you know, going into this fight, and you know, it all worked out for him. So congratulations to his management team and him himself for executing on the night. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the IBF and just all this moaning from not just boxing fans, because this video just isn't directed at boxing fans. This video is directed at Paulie Malignaggi. This video is directed at my guy Sean Porter, my guy Chris Algieri, all these guys who are supposed to be respected, demeaning guys who are mandatory challengers. I mean, all these guys have had world titles. All these guys have been made to fight guys like Michael Eifert at some point in their career. No name, you know, guys that people didn't know much about, you know, and here they are now in their post-fight years. Now they're sounding like these casual boxing fans that I deal with here on YouTube. So I gotta wag my finger at them. There's no hate. It's just how do you not know what this guy did to become the mandatory challenger? Is John so now are you trying to say that John Pascal isn't good enough? Is John Pascal a bum now? Are you going to call a 5-time world champion in multiple weight classes a bum? I mean, because that's what you got to do. If you're going to demean Michael Eifert, you got to demean Jean Pascal. And while you're doing that, also demean Joshua Buatsi for not fighting Jean Pascal and clearly ducking him. You know, he didn't want the fight because, you know, it was ridiculous. And Buatsi's career, it's been a masterclass in mismanagement. You know, not fighting Jean Pascal, an eliminator, turning down the Bivol title shot that was offered to him by Eddie Hearn, all kinds of stuff. And now look at him. You know, what's he to do now? He's waiting for Anthony Yard domestic fight, and Anthony Yard has contractual things he's got to sort out. So, you know, that's my rant on the IBF. You guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure you guys take the time to subscribe. And like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Dania. So until next time, take care, guys. Thank you for watching another video on the untouchable True School Sports Empire. I'm at the Boxing Hall of Fame out here in Canterfield, New York. And for more great boxing content just like this video, make sure you click and subscribe right over here.